Vergil Ortiz, one of the only fighters in the world with a 100% KO ratio, taking on Serhii Bohachuck.
Serhii Bohachuck came to fight. Vergil Ortiz came to fight. There was knockdowns in there. There was controversy. But this fight pretty much had everything that you need to have a fight of the year contender.
If he wants to be at the top at 154, he's got to be, a bit more patient.
Some guys are going to be able to take your punch even though you are a natural born power puncher.
They've made it clear they want Vergil Ortiz versus Crawford.
Not only did we have a fight of the year contender, but we also had a KO of the year contender. This knockout, man, it came out of nowhere. Not only did he get caught super clean, his head bounced like 3 times off the canvas, man.
I mean, we were seeing the typical style of Venado, making just mistakes and whatnot. But this time, the opponent was capitalizing on those mistakes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. In today's episode, we'll be going over the fight of the year candidate between Vergil Ortiz Jr. as he took on Serhii Bohachuck, as well as the KO of the year contender featuring Angelo Leo as he KO'd and upset El Venado Lopez. But before we dive into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, Twitter, and Instagram. Lastly, don't forget to follow us on Discord. We're trying to build up a community, and you joining will be helpful to us. And now diving into the episode. This past weekend, we boxing fans were treated with a very, very eventful evening of boxing. Not only did we have a fight of the year contender, but we also had a KO of the year contender, which was in 2 separate networks as well. But let's talk about the fight of the year contender first. Vergil Ortiz stepped up against Serhii Bohachuck in a very brutal, vicious fight this past weekend. Vergil Ortiz was coming in as the favorite, one of the only fighters in the world with a 100% KO ratio, taking on Serhii Bohachuck, who had climbed up the ranks. His last fight was against Brian Mendoza on the prelims of the Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora card, and he laid out a beating towards Mendoza, former champion at 154. So Serhii Bohachuck, not only was he stepping up to the biggest fight of his career against Vergil Ortiz, but Vergil Ortiz was stepping up to the biggest fight of his career. And his 2 previous fights he's fought 2 times already this year prior to this one, where he easily won by knockout in the first round. So this was definitely a big step up compared to the level competition he had been fighting at 154. But I mean, let me just say, this fight was everything that was promoted as absolutely back and forth action. We had a lot of moments of high tension, a lot of moments of adversity for Vergil Ortiz as he struggled to put away Serhii Bohachuck during this fight. What are you guys' thoughts about this fight, first of all?
Yeah, it was an amazing fight, back and forth action. Serhii Bohachuck came to fight. Vergil Ortiz came to fight. There was knockdowns in there. There was controversy. This fight pretty much had everything that you need to have a fight of the year contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I am very much a Vergil Ortiz fan, and I knew this was going to be a tough fight for him. So Serhii Bohachuck is a guy who was not only taller, but he's also he was going up against a guy who was from the Ukraine. His country is at war right now, so it's almost as if he has that added bonus, that added motivation to continue to be a champion, defend his belt.
Yeah, well, he's the interim belt holder. Yeah, so he wasn't the full champion; he was the interim. But yes, Vergil Ortiz, like I mentioned earlier, he was one of the only few boxers in the world with a 100% knockout ratio, and I mean, this was, in my opinion, a very great fight for him in the aspect of he finally went up against someone who was able to take his power. Serhii Bohachuck took Vergil Ortiz's best punch at many moments, and he frustrated Vergil Ortiz. And not only that, he dropped him twice. The first knockdown happened in the first round, which was, it came out of nowhere. At first I thought, at first glance, maybe it was a slip, but I mean, easily. Now that was a clear knockdown. I'm glad that they went back and changed overturned the decision during like the 5th round, I believe, which I think was a bad official move right there. I mean, they had to stop the fight before the round even began, and then there was like another extra minute of break, as they went to the corner telling them, yo, it was a knockdown in the 1st round.
But to be honest, I'm glad that they actually did that.
Yeah,
because that's actually one of the only few times that I actually see someone actually like stop and review the tape.
It's kind of crazy that like we're 2024, we have like all these cameras, and usually boxing still doesn't utilize it. Like I don't know why they don't, or why they don't do it more often. So it was actually a good thing that they did it.
Yeah, every other sport has instant replay. Why not boxing?
Yeah.
Well, they do have instant replay, but like to the point of overturning like decisions, stuff like that. I mean, it's happened before in boxing. Top Rank has done it before themselves. I'm not sure about the other networks, but yeah, for sure. I wasn't even aware that they were gonna do things like that for this fight. So when they stopped the fight and they were like, okay, we're and the commentators were saying they're looking back at tapes, they're deciding, to overturn the decision to a knockdown in the 1st round. So it caught me a little off guard, and I didn't like the way they handled it, stopping the fight midway through, or just midway through after the break. So that's my only criticism towards that. But besides that, yes, I think it's great that they're implementing, I hope they start implementing more of the, the VAR use. We're talking football terms, but yes. What were your guys' thoughts about Vergil Ortiz? He was coming in as the favorite, coming in with a 100% knockout ratio, his first big step up at 154, and many people were predicting Serhii Bohachuck to be his toughest opponent to date. Is there anything from Vergil Ortiz that you saw that he did well, that he needs to improve on? What were your guys' thoughts about him?
I think, the main thing that I saw that Vergil Ortiz was messing up a lot on was just loading way too much on his power. In a lot of instances, like Serhii Bohachuck stands right in front of you. He has no waist movement. He doesn't really take step backs. He doesn't really even throw jabs that much. He lets you kind of work on him, and then he tries to work on you. And Vergil Ortiz was like so headhunting. He was so... he wanted to knock him out so bad that like he would throw his right hands and he just completely miss Bohachuck, who's standing right in front of him. So that's the only thing. I was like, some of these shots, I was like, come on, Vergil, let's lose 10% of the power so we can be 10% more accurate. That was the main thing, Vergil. But another thing that I also liked is that Vergil utilized his feet a little bit more than he does in his other fights. Usually he's the wrecking ball who just purely goes forward and destroys his opponents. And in this fight, he definitely did go forward, but there was a lot of instances where Serhii Bohachuck was also able to push Vergil Ortiz back, and Vergil was utilizing his jab and trying to catch Bohachuck on a counter. It didn't really work out amazing. I think Vergil still definitely has to improve on some of those aspects, but he showed a different side to his game, and I think that's what it's all about. He's stepping up in competition, and we should be seeing new sides of his game.
Yeah, for me, I said it before, I'm a huge fan of his, so I knew him going up against Bohachuck, it was going to be his toughest fight to test. Bohachuck is a guy who also has a very impressive record, 26 wins, 1 loss, and 25 KOs, something like that. And so
he was 24-1.
24-1, yeah, 24-1, with the majority of those wins coming by KO. And he's also the taller dude, so that was also a thing that was going to help him in his favor. Going back to your first point, saying that Vergil was just loading up too much on his shots, I think something to also a point that I want to make is that he was being very impatient. And I think that's what caused him to want to load up and try to get him out of there very quickly. If I'm not mistaken, he threw the first right hand. Vergil threw the first right hand. 15 seconds into the fight, he landed it. But that just shows that he really wanted to get him out. I feel like even between, I think it was like the 3rd or 2nd round, Robert was telling Vergil, hey, just slow down. Just take it a little bit. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Take your time.
Yeah, that's also another issue. There was no feeling out process from either fighter. From the very, like you just said, from the very beginning, like not even 30 seconds into the fight, Vergil Ortiz already throwing that right hand, trying to land combinations on Serhii Bohachuck. And that's another issue I had with Vergil Ortiz. I felt that he was trying to find that one hitter quitter. And I mean, we've seen from Serhii Bohachuck in his previous fights that it's gonna take a lot more than one punch to get him out of there. You're gonna need you're gonna need a good combination. He's a type of fighter that you're gonna need multiple combinations in order to at least drop him. There were moments in the fight where you could tell that Serhii Bohachuck was hurt, but like the commentator said, he was never in trouble at any point. There may be some moments he was, but it wasn't anything, out of the, that had you like, oh my gosh, like Vergil Ortiz is going to drop him right now if he lands a good punch. There was never no moment like that. If anything, it looked like there's points where Serhii Bohachuck was landing those types of punches on Vergil Ortiz where I was like, dang, if Vergil Ortiz does not, if he doesn't watch himself, he's going to get hurt. He might get dropped again. Yeah. Speaking of getting dropped, this was the first time we've seen Vergil Ortiz touch the canvas, I believe. The first one, it wasn't counted, but when he got dropped by Mean Machine, it wasn't counted. It was counted as a slip. Many people still claim that it was a drop or a legitimate knockdown, but this time we for sure got a legitimate knockdown. The first one for sure was a knockdown in the first round. The second one came at the 8th round. Serhii Bohachuck caught Vergil Ortiz with a clean hook, and as Ortiz was trying to throw his own hook, he got dropped. And that sparked a lot of controversy I saw online because people were claiming that he slipped prior to being dropped that second time. And if you do look back at the footage at that round, a couple seconds before Vergil Ortiz got dropped, in that same exact area, Serhii Bohachuck actually slips a little bit. And so people are trying to connect the dots, saying like, hey, Serhii Bohachuck slipped in that same area where Vergil Ortiz got dropped, so maybe it was a bit wet, this and that. But regardless, he still got hit, man. Yeah. I mean, he still got hit. That's what the referee saw. He saw him still get hit with the hook and then him drop. So I do think that's still legitimate knockdown. But I can see the other side of it. People claiming it's not.
Yeah, Vergil was very vocal. When he got dropped, immediately he got up and pointed at the canvas. So maybe there was a little bit of water on the canvas. We don't really know. A punch was landed and he went down. I think that's an official knockdown.
Yes. So that's the thing. We saw Vergil Ortiz, like my point I was trying to make is that we saw Vergil Ortiz get dropped for the first time, multiple times throughout the fight. And I mean, we've seen Vergil Ortiz just absolutely steamroll every single one of his competition. Even with Mean Machine where he got hurt, he knocked him down 5-6 times in that fight and stopped him. So this was, from Vergil Ortiz, who was known for absolutely obliterating every single opponent, to going up against Serhii Bohachuck, who not only drops him twice, cuts him, is not affected by any of his punches. This is a great fight for Vergil Ortiz to experience, in my opinion. The first big step up, and I think it's his first time in his pro career realizing that, hey, I'm not going to be able to just steamroll every single opponent. There's going to be some guys out there, some fighters out there who are going to be able to take my best shot. If I'm going to try to be the top of that 154, which seems that 154 division is really heating up, especially now that we know how tough and how great of a fighter Serhii Bohachuck is. If he wants to be at the top at 154, he's got to implement more stuff to his game. And he's got to be, a bit more patient when it comes to finding the right combination, finding the right, punch selection in order to become more of a solid contender at 154.
Yeah, that's the downside of being a power puncher, being risen up as a guy who has 100% knockout ratio. Vergil Ortiz has stopped everyone in his path, and that it definitely goes to your head, man. Like, you can't lie and say it doesn't go to your head. So when he's fighting these guys, when he's fighting Serhii Bohachuck, it kind of clouded his judgment. Yeah, he was like a little like, oh, I just have to land this right hand. Let me just land this right hand, and swinging that shit. And usually it didn't land. Even when it did land, it didn't do anything crazy to Serhii Bohachuck. So I think Vergil Ortiz, yeah, he's sometimes it's not good being risen up as or having power, because he didn't set up his punches at points. He wasn't patient. There was a lot of mistakes that was made because he was solely relying on that power.
Yeah, that power. I feel like, maybe we can get into this, but Crawford also experienced something like that too. His first time moving up to 154 fighting against Majamov, who was a decent opponent, big guy. I feel like Crawford was struggling a little bit with just the weight wise. I feel like now Vergil is also understanding that there's weight classes for a reason. There's going to be a point where just some guys are going to be able to take your punch even though you are a natural born a power puncher.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Crawford's last performance. It wasn't the best. Now people are talking about this performance by Vergil Ortiz and saying it wasn't the best. The thing is, that's being rumored as the next fight for both fighters because His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh was there at the fights with Oscar De La Hoya, and they got interviewed, and both of them said they want to make Crawford versus Vergil and William Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson in the same card. So big money fight for Vergil Ortiz, for Crawford as well. I mean, for both fighters. And do you think? Listen, this actually sparked a lot of controversy online as well. A lot of people believe that Bohachuk won the fight. Yeah. They thought it was a robbery. They thought it was. Vergil came back from 2 knockdowns. That's a good amount. 2 knockdowns. The scorecards came out. The judges had it 8 rounds to 4 for Vergil Ortiz. So it's a close fight, but it's a clear victory for Vergil Ortiz. Not a lot of people saw that fight. Some people are saying that it was the money. Vergil Ortiz has all these money fights in his future. We can't let him lose this time.
Yeah.
So, when I was scoring it live, at the end of the fight, I had it 7-5 for Vergil Ortiz. I had it a draw, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I think a draw was respectable, in my opinion. I saw it more of a draw. I don't see how you could give 8 rounds to Vergil Ortiz. Maybe, if you look back at it and try to decipher every single round, but maybe you can, find a round that you can give him 8. But then we're talking about the judges who are seeing that, on time, live. I mean, they can't rewind the round and be like, okay, I missed this punch, and stuff like that. So I had a 7-5 for Vergil Ortiz. I thought it was a draw. I definitely want to see a rematch. Well, I don't know. The chances for a rematch happening are very slim. Very low. Yeah. I don't expect to see an immediate rematch at all, or maybe even a rematch in the future. But their styles are well suited for each other. I think that if we saw a rematch, we'd see more fireworks. And I think I'd favor Vergil Ortiz again, still in the rematch. I think he'd do a better job in the rematch than he did in the first fight. But as respect to this fight, I had it a draw in my scorecard.
Yeah, for me, I was going for Ortiz, and not gonna lie, halfway through, I was like, "Dang, this is a pretty close competitive fight. I'm not sure how it's going." The 8th round, I think that's where Bohachuk scored the second knockdown. I was like, it's definitely not going in our favor right now. But I feel like Ortiz definitely closed the rounds better. Mm-hmm. When I first watched it, I thought he had lost. But then rewatching it, I did get the feeling that he did close the rounds, the later rounds a little bit better, and so I edged it towards a draw.
Yeah, and then another instance as well. I mean, Vergil Ortiz had a ton of fans in there, so whenever he'd start, throwing these combinations, the crowd would go insane. They would and sometimes that does play a factor in the judges' scorecards. Obviously it shouldn't. They should be objective and just watch the fight. But I mean, we're human, and usually when a guy lands a punch, maybe you see it graze him, but he takes an awkward step, and then the crowd goes crazy. You're like, oh, maybe he is a little hurt. And I think there was a lot of instances of that happening. Ortiz kind of landing a punch, and Bohachuk taking kind of a weird, awkward step, and Ortiz sometimes thought he hurt him and started, unleashing like a 10-punch combination. Nothing really clean landed, but crowd was going crazy. Bohachuk wasn't really throwing back. That can swing rounds. So it was a controversial decision. I don't know. Yeah, this is a hard one. Yeah, because it could have been a draw. I feel if it isn't a draw, then you have to lean it a little towards Bohachuk.
Yeah, that's what I agree with what your statement said. That I saw Vergil Ortiz dominate the first opening rounds, except the first round where you have to give to Bohachuk now. But I mean, the opening rounds, Vergil Ortiz started it well, and then he ended the fight very well. The last 3 rounds, I actually edged it towards Vergil Ortiz. It's just the middle rounds that were very, very complicated. The knockdowns played a big factor, and that's why I gave it a 7-5 in favor of Vergil Ortiz, but a draw. So I saw a lot of people online were very disappointed in the scorecard. Manny Robles, Serhii Bohachuck's trainer, was very vocal during the post-fight conference, speaking about their officials are never taken accountable. They'll have no accountability, and then going off about what just happened. So it was a close fight. You had Caleb Plant saying that he thought Vergil Ortiz won. Mm-hmm. So it was very close. Very divided. I I personally need to see a couple more times, but as of right now, I have my scorecard still as a draw. I thought it was very close, and I want to see a rematch. You know, this is a fight that does deserve a rematch. Are we going to get one? Probably not. But I also saw a lot of people online were saying, hey, like Serhii Bohachuck against Madrimov, Serhii Bohachuck against, Fundora, Serhii Bohachuck against, Serhii Bohachuck. Earl Spence. I mean, maybe,
big fish.
The big fish if once he debuts at 154. But yeah, Serhii Bohachuck for sure, 100% earned a lot of respect and has now become in my opinion, he's becoming a fan favorite because his style is fan friendly, suitable for all ages. He's there to fight, and he's shown in all his fights that his offense is his defense. He's not there to be, he has a good high guard. I'll give him that. But besides that, I mean, he's there to be hit, but he's also there to hit. So his style is very fan friendly. And I mean, if he was able to pull off this type of performance against Vergil Ortiz, who's known to be carnage in the ring, I mean, imagine what how he would perform against the other champions at 154 or the other contenders. So I see a lot of future for Serhii Bohachuck as well at 154.
Definitely, I think he gained a lot of fans in this fight. I'm sure it's going to be a fight of the year contender. If it doesn't win, even if it doesn't win, people are going to be talking about this at the end of the year. A lot of people know Vergil Ortiz. He's a hot, really popular star, popular fighter. So they're going to know this guy now. I still think I don't think that the rematch is going to come right away just because of the money, and they've made it clear they want Vergil Ortiz versus Crawford, which people are now starting to look at. Both fighters had not the best performance their last fight, but now they're going to be supposedly pitted against each other for Crawford's belt that he just took off of Israel Madrimov. Are we excited about this fight, or is this a good fight?
Well, before I answer to that question, let me add a little bit to your point with Ortiz. A lot of people saw Ortiz now. This is a big fight for him. A lot of more eyes were on him. This fight was in Vegas as well, headlining there. He also showed that he's no bitch either. I mean, he got knocked down twice, and he still got up, and he got mad. Yeah. Some other fighters, the moment they get knocked down, they see a little blood, their vision starts getting a little bit blurry, they start going down in the performance, or they just start kind of, in a sense, quitting. Instead, he continued to put in 100%, maybe even 110% after those knockdowns as well, to try to get his lick back.
Yeah, that's exactly true. We saw the dog in Vergil Ortiz, man. That dude, he's absolutely, I mean, he has big, not only a strong mentality, but he's got a big pride, big ego. And I mean, I'm 100% sure that when he got dropped, I mean, instantly, he would shake his head, say no to the ref, and boast in both knockdowns. And I mean, he would come back and just, all rage, all fire, try to get his lick back on Serhii Bohachuck. And I mean, that's what made round 8 so memorable. I think that's one of the best rounds, if not one of the round of the year contenders. I mean, he got dropped with that hook. He was shaking his head no at the ref. Ref was like, bro, you got hit. He's like, okay, bet. He went back and gave it, and he just try to get, like I said, get his lick back against Serhii Bohachuck. So that 8th round was incredible, one of the best rounds of the year so far. So yeah, Vergil Ortiz showed that he is he's got that fire inside him, that passion, and Serhii Bohachuck showed that he's a very tough, very very tough fighter as well. So what was your question about the fight?
Against him being paired up against Crawford. To be honest, I really like that fight. I really do. But I feel like I would like to see maybe 1 or 2 more fights for Ortiz going up against someone else, and then fighting Crawford later next year. So maybe if you can get a fight early next year and then fight for Crawford.
Well, it sounds like you think he's not ready. That's what that sounds like.
Partially. I feel like there's still things that he needs to work on. But I mean, everything else is there except maybe the defense and maybe having a little bit more tricks up his sleeve. I feel like later in the rounds, I want to say like 9 and 10, Ortiz was doing quite a bit of boxing, moving in circles, just turning Bohachuck, which is something that was coming out very well for him. He was performing really good. So I feel like if he works on those things, maybe I can see him beating Crawford, but at this point in time, I feel like it's too early. Yeah,
well, first off, I think we're not going to get that fight until next year because, I mean, Vergil Ortiz and Bohachuk are both coming off from a very brutal fight. I know they're well damaged at this point. So Robert Garcia during the post-fight conference said that they asked him about Crawford or like his next possible fights, and he said, Vergil Ortiz, going to take a couple months, to relax, to rest, to see family. And I mean, if he's taking a couple months, I mean, he's got 4 months until December, the end of the year. I mean, if he's taking a couple months, then I'm guessing he's going to take 2 or 3, maybe 3 at most. But I'm assuming 2 months of break, of rest in between. So and also to let his body heal up and rest. So we won't see Vergil Ortiz again till next year. That's what I'm betting on. So this fight against Crawford won't happen in December. I think that's what they're kind of teasing it about.
Oh no, that shit is not happening.
I hope not. I for some reason I was thinking that they were teasing it for December. But because they also want to see Shakur Stevenson return. Yeah. That's the issue too. Mm-hmm. So if you want to put them in the same card, then you can't have Shakur and Zepeda waiting in the sideline for too long. So we won't see that fight until next year. In my personal opinion, I'd rather see a rematch. I think Vergil Ortiz is a lot better than what he showed. But this fight will serve him well. And I think that, maybe 1 or 2 more fights, like you said, will do him good. And I think after that, it's time for him to fight Crawford. Maybe fighting another contender, another top guy at 154. Because if you fight Sergio Bohachuk and then you start going down in your opponent, in your opposition, like, it's not going to do you any good. Like, I feel like Vergil Ortiz should either stick to a rematch or go to a rematch with Bohachuk. And if not, go against another top 154 pounder, maybe an Erickson Lubin, maybe
Tim Tszyu would be the only one. I feel like
Tim Tszyu, but like I feel like Tim Tszyu would be. I mean, he's like, the money isn't as big with Tim Tszyu as it is with Crawford, and he has a possibility to lose with Tim Tszyu, so that's a big risk by itself as well. I mean, we're talking about Tim Tszyu, a legitimate, a former champion 154 who, who's a big risk towards Vergil Ortiz as well. I mean, it should have happened last weekend. Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't for the injury, but yeah, I still think Vergil Ortiz should maybe just find another contender at the moment. Stay active at the elite level at 154, and then if he does well in those 2 fights, then look for a Terrence Crawford showdown.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it is going to take a while. Obviously, Vergil took a lot of damage. Also, Crawford, I mean, he takes like year-long hiatus all the time. Like, when is the last time he fought 2 times in a year? Like, he's one of those fighters that just takes a long time in between fights. I don't know if he's going to continue to do that because he is getting older, but. Yeah, if that fight were to happen, I'm not sure, how interested Crawford is. It seems he's still a little interested in the Canelo fight. He's still talking about that as well. But if they were to fight, I don't think Vergil would come out victorious. I would give it edge to Crawford. I think his style is much, much better suited to a Vergil Ortiz than it was to Madrimov. Yeah. A lot of people might look at Crawford's performance and be like, oh, but Madrimov almost beat him, he
only 11 fights.
With only 10 fights, like, he almost beat him. And now we're talking about Vergil Ortiz, who still has a super high KO percentage. But at the end of the day, styles make fights. And I think the Ortiz's style is much better suited for Crawford's style, Crawford's counter punches. So yeah, if they were to fight, I don't see it going that well for Vergil Ortiz. I think Crawford would definitely put a much better performance and shut a lot of haters up too.
So yes, Vergil Ortiz and Serhii Bohachuck gave us a very memorable fight at 154, and I think this shows that the 154 division is a very hot division as well. I mean, it seems to be overlooked by 135 and 140 at many points, but I mean, Serhii Bohachuck is now emerged as a very solid contender at 154, as well as Vergil Ortiz, as well as, like I said, Erickson Lubin, El Mono Ramos, Tim Tszyu, Terrence Crawford, Sebastian Fundora, maybe Earl Spence once he debuts there. There's a lot of big names at 154, and I feel that this division is heating up. Once again, hopefully Charlo comes back.
He's never coming back.
If he comes back, he comes back. But Brian Mendoza, also, what's his name? Castano. I mean, we haven't seen him in a while,
It's
but
been a while, yeah.
But I mean, he was at one point a top guy there. So yeah, the 154 division is a very hot division at the moment, and I hope it keeps heating up, man, because we can get a lot of big fights at 154, and a lot of these fighters can seem to be, can be beaten. A lot of these O's can go. A lot of new stars can emerge. So 154 division is one to look out for. So that was our take and our thoughts and opinions about the Vergil Ortiz and Serhii Bohachuck showdown this past weekend. But you know what was also going on this past weekend? The return of El Venado Lopez, man. The road warrior is what he's been dubbed. He's been everywhere across the world. I remember when we first were introduced to him when he fought Gabriel Flores Jr. on Top Rank. I remember we saw that. Oh my! Remember watching that fight live, man?
Oh yeah.
That was an ass whooping, man. It was such an ass whooping. That's how El Venado Lopez emerged to the scene by beating Gabriel Flores. And since then, he's been on an absolute roll to the point where he beat Josh Warrington and became officially a featherweight champion. So we've seen Venado Lopez rise to the top, and we also witnessed what could be his downfall. This past weekend he went up against hometown boy Angelo Leo over in New Mexico, and I mean, it was. This knockout, man. It came out of nowhere. I can't lie. It came out of nowhere. Before we talk about it, what are you guys' thoughts about the fight and what you guys saw?
Yeah. Well, we started because boxing loves to put two events on at the same day. We didn't actually get to watch the full fight. We tuned in after Vergil Ortiz was announced the victor against Serhii Bohachuck, and when we tuned in, I believe it was the fourth round. And right away, I could see Venado Lopez not looking as dominant as he usually does, and Leo landing some good shots, pushing him back. This fight, there was a decent amount of clinching, but I don't know. I just thought immediately I saw Venado Lopez not in control, which is rare because like you said, Venado Lopez has been on fire recently. His past 13. He has 13 fight win streak, 8 by knockout. Like, that's amazing. And he was, now he's fighting at the elite level. He beat Josh Warrington. He became a world champion. I believe this was his 4th title defense. So he was doing big things. But it looks like Angelo Leo, he had different plans on him. He looked really good in there. He stayed calm, and then he landed that super hellacious shot on Venado Lopez and sent him to sleep.
Yeah, so, as you stated, we were watching the other fight, and then we tuned in a little bit later, midway through. I think it was like the 3rd, 4th round. And, yeah, right off the bat, we were seeing the typical style of Venado, making just mistakes and whatnot. But this time, the opponent was capitalizing on those mistakes. You know what I'm saying? But before, I guess during fight week, I'm not sure what Venado's game plan was or what he thought of Angelo Leo. But I've known Angelo Leo. He's a guy who goes quite a bit to the body. His attack, if you go and look at the punch selection, he outlanded Venado in body shots, and he threw way more to the body. So I feel like in some sense that helped him, and that paid off later in the end. But yeah, it did not look good for Venado. He kind of looked like Bambi. Just his head kept going from side to side. He's making that typical mistake of keeping his chin up in the air, and at the end, that's what he paid the price for it.
Yeah, it's true, because usually, it's no secret that Venado Lopez commits a ton of mistakes. He's been criticized constantly by the boxing community for destroying all the boxing fundamentals. He has his hands down, his chin is wide up in the air. He whenever he throws his backhand, he usually always goes out of position. He's caught in kind of weird angles. He always does all these things wrong, but it always seems to work out. He always lands effective shots, especially that uppercut that he loves throwing. But this time, he was doing all the mistakes, but he wasn't getting any reward. He wasn't landing like clean shots against Angelo Leo. He wasn't hurting him. He was just like taking an ass whooping. It was kind of crazy to see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, we all, Venado Lopez, is openly known to not have the fundamentals right. He's always committed so many errors throughout every single one of his fights, but it always works out for him at the end. But there was always that majority of people who were saying, one of these days, he's gonna pay for not learning from his mistakes. And he finally got it, man. I was not, I also anticipated that day. I was hoping it wasn't going to come, but I for sure was not anticipating it to be Angelo Leo to deliver it. And yes, that's what happens when, Venado Lopez is aware that he's not fundamentally the best or the best technical fighter on the planet. He's well aware of that. But he and his team saw it like, we're so unorthodox that no one else can really compete with us because we're just no one's used to our type of style. So they kept on going. They kept on trying to craft that type of style, but it's only gonna get you so far, man. I believe we may have seen the best of Venado Lopez, more in the aspect that this knockout was absolutely brutal. Not only did he get caught super clean, his head bounced like 3 times off the canvas, man. And if you get knocked out like that, I'm sorry, but for you to reach the elite level once again, it's going to be a lot more difficult, man. Is your chin going to be well? Are you going to be able to... what changes are you going to make? Is your mentality shot? At this point, it seems like a lot of questions that Venado Lopez should be asking himself, and a lot of questions that his team should be asking, like, should we have done something better? Should we have prepared better? How did we overlook Angelo Leo? This and that. So there's a lot of what ifs. At the end of the day, Venado Lopez got what many people were calling it. He got what he deserved, in the aspect that if you're not going to work on your mistakes, on your flaws, and you're going to keep fighting that way that you do, fine. If it works out, works out. But don't be surprised when it bites you in the foot.
Yeah, it's true. It's I think there definitely is some truth into it, because I just didn't see him sharp. I didn't see him, being that effective. And people will hear that, and then they'll say, have you seen his fights? He always fights like ass. Oh my, he makes so much mistakes. All yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But you got to also take into consideration, Venado Lopez wasn't just, fighting, making all those mistakes against like a ton of trash cans. No, he's fighting the elite guys at his division. He fought Josh Warrington like that. He fought all the elite guys that he's fought the exact same way, and it's paid off. So it was kind of interesting to see him doing that, but not being effective with that style. I don't know, maybe it has something to do with his preparation. Maybe he became a world champion and he's, living the high life, not working hard, not being prepared. Maybe this is what he needed to get his hunger back. You never know.
Yeah, I feel like something to add. Maybe I feel like he's a guy who I follow him on X, and I think he's a guy who trains consistently. He's in the gym just about year round, even if he doesn't have a fight. But I feel like just if we're talking about preparation, I really think he overlooked Angelo Leo on on a little bit of that instance, because he always fights like that, just like as if really chill, really relaxed. It doesn't really matter if I get hit, if my head goes up here, I'm gonna take it because I have a chin or whatever. I just think he overlooked him, really. I just think he must have just been like, I don't know who this guy is. He used to be a world champion, but that was back in the day. It's my time. It's Venado's time. He's not gonna do anything to me. I'm gonna go to his hometown and I'm gonna beat his ass.
Yeah, and then another thing, Angelo Leo was going up in weight. So he was a 122 pounder. Now he went up to 126. Maybe Venado thought this was his division. Another thing as well, he should probably look into getting a corner change. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna have to change. Yeah, this showed him he has to change something. And usually, if you have that corner like that, they're not gonna make that much changes. Maybe they're just gonna push you harder in the gym, but they're not gonna work on actual fundamentals. They're not gonna try to improve your actual game. So I think it's something to explore for Venado Lopez to get some corner change. Go to a gym that actually works on fundamentals, and he doesn't have to change his whole style and become a textbook boxer. He can still definitely keep some of that unorthodox, because that's what makes him him. He definitely needs that aspect, but it's like a Manny Pacquiao Freddie Roach situation where Freddie Roach tidied up a lot of Pacquiao's mistakes, but he still let him be a little wild, a little loose in a lot of aspects. I think Venado needs to find a coach that tidies up his defense, but still works on his aggression and his offense because it is truly elite. Venado Lopez's offense.
Yeah. So yes, Venado Lopez dethroned for the first time since his whole entire incredible run that he had. You know, the run was fun. We watched it from the beginning. So seeing it how it ended this past weekend was a bit heartbreaking. You know, because we were like, man, we saw this man from you know, as that, you know, he had the highlights on his hair against Gabriel Flores to becoming world champion, to ruining Michael Conlan's homecoming fight, all the way through his whole entire title defenses, all the way up to the knockout of the year that he got delivered on. So it was a bit heartbreaking, I can't lie.
No, he was one of my favorite fighters.
I know, yes,
he was one of my favorite fighters. I liked his style.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what people are also saying. They're saying, oh, you know, Venado Lopez, so unorthodox, he finally bit the bullet. Navarrete is another fighter like that, very unorthodox, breaks all the boxing fundamentals, not even close to a textbook boxer. Is he gonna receive the same fate?
I mean, he already took a loss.
Well,
But in the aspect of getting sparked out like this,
sparked
man.
out.
Sparked out like that, because it's bound to happen, right? On paper, I mean, if we saw Lopez, who nearly the same type of unorthodox, breaking all the fundamentals, get sparked out, then something is in the horizon for Navarrete to experience the same fate, no?
Yeah, I'd say if Navarrete were to stay at 135, there's a real high chance, and he fights like a power puncher, there's a real high chance that he gets slept like that. But if he goes down to, I think he already went back down to 130 and he's going to stay there and defend his title, I think he should be fine there just because of his size, how big he is.
Well, people were saying, they're like, oh, like, because, you know, this whole Venado Lopez knockout, you know, went viral and people were talking about it. And then they brought up Navarrete and they were like, yeah, like Navarrete, a lot of people were saying, I was predicting Navarrete to get knocked out in that same fashion against Oscar Valdez. And now there's a anticipated rematch, you know, in the works for December, with the co-main event being El Divino Espinosa taking on El Tren Ramirez for the rematch. So we're getting 2 rematches in one card, 2 banging fights in one card. This is going to be one great event at the moment. So
great Mexican showdown.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, the Mexican showdown. But so the December card that they're working on, we're going to see Navarrete supposedly taking on Oscar Valdez again in the rematch. And if Valdez learned anything, I mean, he could maybe use this as motivation, you know, as okay, like Angelo Leo, the underdog, destroyed the very unorthodox, unbeatable champion. Like, I can do that to Navarrete and get my lick back on him.
Yeah, I guess maybe Valdez might feel more motivated or more inspired. But I think there is a bit of a difference between Venado's unorthodox and Navarrete's unorthodox style. Venado just like loves to keep his head just in the air, man. And usually Navarrete doesn't. Usually Navarrete doesn't really like to get hit. He doesn't really get, you know, cleanly hit like that. Venado Lopez was literally walking forward, just letting Leo hit him, like allowing him, like, okay, hit me, and trying to land back. Whereas Navarrete likes to use his reach. He's a very long fighter, and he does like to use his reach. I think that would help him. It's gonna help him a lot to avoid getting sparked out like that. And another thing with Valdez as well. I mean, in that first fight, Navarrete beat the shit out of him.
He did.
Yeah.
He beat the shit out of him, man.
No one was expecting Navarrete to look the way that he looked. I mean, because coming up to that fight, he was not looking that good. And then ever since that fight, he hasn't looked good either. So
that fight, that performance was amazing.
It was great.
Yeah.
Literally one of his best performances he's given in recent years. And we haven't seen it like that from him since then. So I feel like he needs an actual rival in order to spark out that motivation, which is a bad thing for a fighter to have, in my opinion. But
yes, because if he fights if he's unmotivated for a fighter, then he's gonna look very bad, and it risks a chance of getting KO'd.
Yeah, going back to their styles, they're very similar in the aspect that they're very unorthodox. But like what you said, it's the chin. Venado always has his chin very exposed, very high up, and I feel like he does that because he's always a shorter fighter. So it almost feels like when he throws a jab, he's always like doing this to get like that extra 1 to 2 inches of reach almost. But yeah, I feel like that's the only thing that was a difference. I feel like Navarrete, you know, like what you said, he doesn't really get hit too much, and he does typically have like a better guard, and his chin is a bit more tucked for sure.
Yeah, and he takes step backs as well.
yeah, he's smart in there.
He's smart.
I would say he is. They're both unorthodox, break the fundamentals, but you can tell that Navarrete is thinking a lot more in there. You know, trying to be more defensively cautious. You know, the step back, the chuck 10. You know, reaching out. You know, trying to get out the range of his opponent's firing range. So yes, there's some differences, but people online were trying to make the comparison that, you know, if Venado has met this fate, then Naverette for sure is gonna meet it someday too, right?
No, I mean, listen, half of my heart already got broken for Venado. If Naverette is gonna get sparked out like that, I don't think I'm gonna be able to recover. Like,
the podcast ends.
Yeah, dude. My two favorite Mexican fighters at the moment just
sparked like that. No, that'd be insane. But yes, this knockout of the year contender. Yeah. Devastating in his hometown too. So Angelo Leo was for sure feeling the hype, the vibe. Right now he's probably, you know, just chilling, you know, enjoying the fruits of his loins.
Well,
and I mean he made history, two-time division champion, and now he's one of the champions. So we got El Tren Ramirez, we got
Nick Ball,
Nick Ball, yeah. And Espinosa, and now Angelo Leo. So we can see another matchups for Angelo Leo. My opinion, I think Angelo Leo is the weakest one. I would say Nick Ball would beat Angelo Leo.
Nick Ball beats him?
I think he does. Yeah, I think Nick Ball beats him. It'd be a great fight because they're both would come in clashing. So I think it would be a great fight to make. In a great unification bout as well. If we're gonna get a unification bout for Espinosa and El Tren, then why not get a unification bout between Nick Ball and Leo?
But is El Tren Ramirez a world champ?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah,
I mean,
wait, who's the champ then?
It's the Ray Vargas, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that dude.
Ray Vargas.
Never mind. Ignore everything I said.
Although he shouldn't be.
He is Ray. Yeah, it is
Yeah,
Ray.
he should not be.
Yeah.
Ray Vargas. Yeah,
Ray Vargas,
okay.
yeah.
So Angelo Leo, Ray Vargas, Espinosa, and Nick Ball. Wait.
I think it is Nick Ball.
I thought it was Nick Ball.
He beat Raymond Ford.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Box Rick took out the WBA on. Yeah, I was like, yo, where's the other champ?
Yeah, Nick Ball. I mean, it's a weird. It's kind of a weird. The world champions. I mean, Angelo Leo now is he called out. Who did he call out? Espinosa and Inoue. When they gave him the mic in the post-fight interview.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He called out Inoue. I was like, okay. I mean, Inoue's at 122, but he wants that money fight, I'm guessing.
So it should be good. Angelo Leo now is up on the line for money fights, hopefully, at the 126 division. 126 division is a very underrated one at the moment. It used to be one of the hottest ones at a point, maybe sometime last year. But then after a while, you know, it's been a little on the decline. But it's still underrated. It's a very great division to watch. And we have a lot of good champions, a lot of good unifications, hopefully coming up. So keep your eye out for the featherweight division. Is there anything else you guys would want to touch up on? No? All right, let us know down below. What was your scorecards for the Serhii Bohachuck and Vergil Ortiz showdown? Was it a robbery, or did Vergil Ortiz nick it in or come out on top on this very controversial but very brutal fight between both fighters? Also, let us know, is the Venado Lopez getting KO'd the knockout of the year? What's next for Angelo Leo? Should he go for unification? Or maybe say, fuck it, let's go get into it right now, baby. Let us know down below what you guys think. Don't forget to follow and like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, TikTok, and Instagram. Last thing, don't forget to follow us on Discord. You know, join our Discord. We're trying to build up a community, and you joining would be great and helpful for us. But this was Pablo, and I am with Rudo and Asa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.